In the late 19th century, siblings Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert maintained a quiet, predictable life on a farm in Avonlea, Prince Edward Island. As they grew older, they realized they needed help with the heavy lifting around their property, a farm known as Green Gables. To solve this, they arranged to adopt a young boy. But when Matthew arrived at the local railway station to collect the new farmhand, he found that a massive miscommunication had taken place along the telegraph lines. There was no capable young boy waiting for him. Instead, the orphanage sent an 11-year-old, highly imaginative girl with bright red hair named Anne Shirley. Up to this point, Anne had never known a real family. Her parents died when she was an infant, and she spent her childhood bouncing between impoverished caregivers and a bleak institutional asylum where she was treated primarily as a servant rather than a child. This administrative error handed the pragmatic Cuthberts a profound dilemma. They had to choose between discarding an unwanted orphan back into a system that had already failed her, or upending their quiet routines to give her a permanent home. The choice weighed heavily, but Matthew's mind was made up almost immediately. During the buggy ride back to the farm, he found himself entirely charmed by Anne's endless, vibrant chatter and her rich imagination. Marilla, however, possessed a strict pragmatism. When she saw a girl instead of a boy, her initial reaction was outright rejection. She fully intended to send this seemingly useless child right back to the asylum. In the original text, Anne's desperation is clear. She offers an unconventional prayer, asking to stay at Green Gables. Reading further, Marilla's perspective shifts. Learning of her grim past and noticing Matthew's relief, Marilla's strict facade breaks. She decides to keep the girl. Anne now had a roof over her head, but she still faced the rigid social expectations of Avonlea. To stay, she would have to find a way to reconcile her impulsive nature with a community that valued order and tradition above all else. The text of Chapter 4 frames her early days at the farm. Anne possessed a hot temper and a highly romanticized view of the world, traits that led her into constant social scrapes. She processed her new environment by projecting her imagination onto it, giving grandiose poetic titles to ordinary landmarks, like calling a local pond the Lake of Shining Waters. She also threw herself into relationships with incredible intensity. She quickly bonded with a local girl named Diana Bry, declaring her a fiercely loyal bosom friend and finding an essential social anchor in the community. But school brought a different kind of intensity. A boy named Gilbert Blythe made the fatal error of pulling her braid and mocking her red hair. Anne immediately smashed her slate over his head, sparking a bitter, years-long academic feud right in the classroom. These early years were defined by fierce emotional extremes. Her deep loyalties and stubborn grudges became the fuel that drove her to prove she belonged. As she progressed through her teenage years, Anne learned to channel that wild, impulsive energy. The girl who once daydreamed her way into trouble transformed into a highly disciplined, brilliant student. Looking at this chapter heading, A Queen's Girl, we see the result of that focus. She successfully left Avonlea to attend Queen's College, aiming to earn her official teaching license. At college, her academic journey culminated in a definitive victory. She outpaced her old rival, Gilbert, to win a highly prestigious scholarship for further university education. The scholarship provided an independent path to a university degree. For an orphan who arrived in Avonlea with nothing, the award represented the freedom to choose a life outside the borders of a rural farm. But just as Anne achieved her academic dreams, an unexpected tragedy struck. Matthew Cuthbert, the man who had first welcomed her, died suddenly of a heart attack. The crisis immediately compounded. Marilla discovered her eyesight was rapidly failing. Unable to maintain the sprawling property alone, she accepted the grim reality that she would have to sell Green Gables. In this exact passage, Anne makes a life-altering decision. She flatly refuses to let Marilla lose the farm, declaring, "You mustn't sell Green Gables." To stay and care for Marilla, she willingly forfeits her hard-won college scholarship. Hearing of her sacrifice, Gilbert Blythe made a critical intervention of his own. He gave up his placement at the Avonlea school so that Anne could take the teaching job and remain close to Marilla. That quiet act of grace finally broke the tension between them. After years of stubborn rivalry, they spoke openly and became close friends. By sacrificing her scholarship to save the farm, Anne protected the same home that had once taken a chance on her. In doing so, she ceased to be a temporary guest and became a vital, permanent fixture of the Avonlea community.